Let's get it, 580 Sports Talk, coming to you on another Victory Monday for the 13-1 Kansas City Chiefs. Though some Victory Mondays are more pyrrhic than others, Patrick Mahomes leaving Sunday's game with an injury. And as a result, you're going to get, as we open 580 Sports Talk today here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream, which you can catch on YouTube on our channel 580 Sports Talk and on Facebook on our page WIBW News. What you are going to get at the top of this show is a bit more fury than you typically get to open up a Victory Monday. There is plenty of good from yesterday's Chiefs performance. The magic number for the number one seed is down to 2 for the Chiefs. And boy, that bye became a lot more important now, didn't it? And the overall performance in Sunday's 21-7 win over the Cleveland Browns was a lot more positive than negative, particularly for a defense that maybe, just maybe, got its swagger back, for lack of a better way to put it, with a command 60-minute performance against that Browns offense. So there is good stuff, and we're going to get to the good stuff eventually. But Patrick Mahomes got hurt and had to leave the game. And I'm not going to worry about Mahomes' ability to play through what is being termed a mild high ankle sprain, because we've seen what he can do on a not mild high ankle sprain. And what's that, everybody? Win the Super Bowl. Deliver a performance for the ages in a Super Bowl for the ages and win a Super Bowl on a worse high ankle sprain than the one that he reportedly has. So this is not me going to say that all is lost or that the season is over, anything like that. But it's so damn stupid that you get him hurt in the first place, and so predictable, because what have we been doing the last 2 weeks? Sitting behind these microphones and saying they're going to get Mahomes hurt. The way they're playing, the plays that they're calling, the positions they're putting Patrick Mahomes in, they're going to get him hurt. And they got him hurt. The one guy you can't get hurt. Anybody else rolls an ankle, gets a mild high ankle sprain. It's not even a story. We might not even mention it on the show. The one guy you can't get hurt if you want to win a third straight Super Bowl, and you get him hurt because you're dumb. You did dumb stuff. And you know what? This isn't just about the offensive line. And frankly, it's not just about Andy Reid calling the plays either, because like Patrick Mahomes shares some blame in this. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. But it was all so stupid and unnecessary. All of the sequence of events that led to Patrick Mahomes hobbling off the field at Huntington Bank Stadium in Cleveland yesterday. And I have some thoughts. And we're going to do plenty of that as we start the show today. But then we will get to all the good stuff, too, because there's a lot of good stuff. 6 turnovers. How about more than half of the turnovers forced in the first 13 games of the season forced on Sunday? Remember what I said on Friday? If you can't create turnovers against this offense, maybe it just isn't in you. Well, the Chiefs proved it's in them. So that's exciting. And one thing in particular has really been juiced, not just this past game, but the last 3 weeks. And it's worth talking about. And we'll get to that. There's lots of good stuff to get to from the Chiefs game. And we will get to the positive eventually on the show today. My name is Dan Lucero. I'm flying the bird solo today. You got just me for the next 3 hours. Spencer Dupuis is unavoidably detained. And Brendan Dworzinski, of course, remains on paternity leave, doing well. He and wife and baby doing well. Talked to him yesterday. So he remains on paternity leave. So it's just me for the next 3 hours here, 3 to 6 on 580 Sports Talk. And we'll break down Chiefs Browns from stem to stern. We'll also get Matt Verderam's thoughts. We'll bring in our NFL insider, Matt Verderam, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. Get Matt's opinions on what transpired by the lake in Cleveland, and also his thoughts on Week 15, which was a really gross slate of football games. And even like the 2 that we thought could have ended up being good, only one of them really was. And And the night game stunk. And I don't want to talk about it any more than that, just to say that it stunk. It's a good thing Brendan's not on the show today. We'd probably have to talk more about it if he were around. I'm glad we don't. Anyway, we'll get Matt's thoughts on the entire Week 15 slate. He'll join us at the bottom of this hour. We'll do good, bad, ugly from the week as well in this hour. We've also got some college sports to talk about on today's show. Do want to get to DJ Giddens declaring for the NFL draft, clears out a bit of a log jam that was developing at the top of the K-State depth chart because they've got not one but two really exciting possibilities to take over for DJ Giddens next year. But in the moment, it's appropriate that we celebrate the unlikely college career and stardom of DJ Giddens and what he represents, and an observation that I was not smart enough to have made years ago when DJ Giddens was just the starting fullback for the Junction City High School Blue Jays. We'll get to that. We'll also get to KU getting back on track and beating North Carolina State on Saturday. Got a chance to watch some of that, with second screening that with Army Navy on Saturday and pulling babysitting duties at the time. KU got back rolling. They looked a lot more comfortable on their home floor. Imagine that. But one guy in particular looked a lot more comfortable, and KU needs to find a way to get the same version of that player when they do not play at the confines of Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I called it that because I know Brendan hates when I call it that. It is just Allen Fieldhouse. It is not, technically speaking, Fog Allen Fieldhouse. It is named for Fog Allen. The name of the building is not Fog Allen Fieldhouse, Carl Ravitch. It is just Allen Fieldhouse. Oh, who was on the call on Saturday? Yeah, it was Paul Ravitch. It was Ravitch. So, good talk about that. Get into that a little bit later on in the program today. Lots to get to, as I mentioned, from Week 15 in the NFL. The Bills won't go quietly. Chiefs really, given the events of yesterday, really could have used a Bills loss. That would have made their path forward a lot clearer for that number one seed, made that magic number 1 instead of 2. There'll be time enough to discuss throughout what is a short week of preparation for the Chiefs, what they should do game theory-wise regarding Patrick Mahomes. And we'll get to all of that as we go along this week. But we'll get into some thoughts on Bills-Lions. And are Lions just going to run out of guys? Because they've got an entire starting defensive unit now out with injury. They lost 3 more guys for the season yesterday, and that's just on defense. They also lost one of their running backs for the season. Gets to a point where you just run out of guys. And I think what we saw from the Lions yesterday is what I refer to when we talk about college football as a deficit of dudes. And the Lions are now at a dude deficit that may be too difficult for them to overcome, not just in the short term, but maybe in the NFC playoffs. So some NFL thoughts as we go along on the show today. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got what is wrong with you. It's just me today, so I've got 2 stories. And you, the listener, get to pick who wins today's What is Wrong with You. All that and a bunch more on the Victory Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Glad you're along. Would love to hear from you. Text line is 785-272-9429. If you are watching on YouTube, first of all, welcome. We see both Marks in the chat. Mark B, Mark H are in. Christopher is in as well. And I'm sure we'll see more of you throughout the program today. If you float over to YouTube, either in your browser or on your device or on your television screen, on the Fire Stick, Roku, whatever you got, there is a live chat feature. You can interact with me and you can interact with your fellow listeners throughout the show today in that live chat. We'd love to hear from you as we go along on this Victory Monday edition. You can also, if you're watching on Facebook, WIBW News, send us a note. And we can read your comments in there as well. It's the royal we today because it's just me here for the next 3 hours on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get into it. Chiefs win 21-7. On paper, should have been a very enjoyable afternoon for the Chiefs. Game never really felt in doubt. Never felt at any point like the Browns were going to put a real scare into the Chiefs. Chiefs forced 6 turnovers, getting off of a schneid. They'd forced just 2 in the last 6 weeks, and they forced 6. They forced one on special teams, the first big play of the game. that really led to the touchdown that gave the Chiefs a lead they would not relinquish. Trent McDuffie, finally, first career interception for Trent McDuffie. Man, how many times did I keep saying, this is the week, this is the week, and it was never the week, and I stopped doing it. And then Spencer on Friday says, Trent McDuffie's my guy. Trent McDuffie's going to be my big chief, and he ends up finally making the call as McDuffie gets his first pick. Jaden Hicks got his first one. Should have been a really enjoyable, easy breezy afternoon of football. And you know who refused to make it that way? The Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to start with the play calling breakdown after the Chiefs took a 21-0 lead early in the third quarter. Nick Bolton had that interception on the deflected pass over the middle from Jameis Winston. It clanged off of Nick Chubb. Bolton made a hell of a play. It was amazing that ball didn't hit the turf. And Bolton brought it in. And I think it was 3 plays later, the Chiefs are in the end zone. Xavier Worthy on that 21-yard. It's called a run in the live stats. I wouldn't be surprised if that got changed down the road into a touchdown pass. Man, imagine the fantasy matchups that might flip if all of a sudden Mahomes gets 21 more yards and an extra touchdown like on Tuesday. Could flip some playoff games in your fantasy leagues. Nobody cares about your fantasy team. Anyway, 21-0. Chiefs are rolling. Nothing to worry about. Jameis Winston's going to keep throwing you the football. Chiefs forced a turnover on the very next Browns drive. After taking a 21-0 lead, the next 22 plays that the Chiefs called, 16 of them were passes. 8 in a row were incomplete. It did not look like a particularly pleasant day to be throwing the ball. Neither quarterback looked all that comfortable throwing it, frankly. And on the last of those passes, again, most of them called with either a 3-touchdown lead or a 2-touchdown lead after Jerome Ford's long touchdown run late in the third. 16 of 22 offensive plays were passes. They were obviously not working. And on the last of those plays, the thing that we have been saying was going to end up happening happened. Patrick Mahomes got hurt. And it happened because the Chiefs gave up a pressure on over half of Mahomes' dropbacks yesterday. 54% of dropbacks, Patrick Mahomes faced pressure. That is the worst performance by a Chiefs offensive line since 2020. Remember what happened after 2020? The offensive line's performance was deemed so unacceptable that the Chiefs went out and remade their entire offensive line. Signed Joe Thuney, drafted Creed Humphrey, drafted Trey Smith, traded for Orlando Brown Jr. That's what happened the last time a Chiefs offensive line was this permissive in a game. It also happened because the Chiefs keep leaving Patrick Mahomes out to dry with pass concepts that take too long to develop with receivers who don't consistently get open. Another thing that I've been saying repeatedly behind this same microphone for the last couple of weeks. All of these long developing crossing route plays where nobody's open in the middle of the field. Go watch the film. Go see how many times there's a log jam in the center of the field and there's nobody for Patrick Mahomes to throw to on plays like that. And if we're being fair, it happened because Patrick Mahomes is holding the ball too long. And if you don't believe me, you can ask him. Patrick Mahomes spoke after the game to this idea that he is, in fact, holding on to the football a little bit too long, that he needs to do a better job getting the ball out. This is what he had to say. Well, you're going to have to give me a minute here. But I do have the quotes from Mahomes after the game for Sunday because Mahomes admitted he plays a role in this. This was his quote. You just have to trust the offense. Even before the injury, I have to do a better job going through my progressions and trusting the offense with the ball in my hands and letting guys make plays. And my nature is to try to make the big play happen. And sometimes defenses stop that. And then when it's not there, I need to go for the underneath stuff and keep it moving. My nature is to try to make the big plays. And sometimes defenses stop that. And if it's not there, I need to go for the underneath stuff and keep it moving. Something we need to get better at as the season ends here and go into the playoffs. End quote. From the transcription from the Browns people yesterday, from the Cleveland Browns folks, from Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, Mahomes shares a part in this. He shares a part in why he's getting pressured so often because the ball's not coming out. And when the ball is coming out for those deep plays, they're not just not there because of scheme. They're not there because the throws aren't there. The throws aren't being made. Mahomes missed on some throws that were not just the over-the-top shots, but some of the more intermediate throws as well. Mahomes was just missing. He wasn't real good yesterday. And I think, again, weather probably had a little bit to do with that. But Mahomes shares a part of this. He has gotten so good over the years out of necessity at taking what is presented him by defenses and not forcing the deep ball for the sake of forcing the deep ball. I give him credit for that. I think it's the main reason the Chiefs have won the last, well, I shouldn't say the main reason, but one of the main reasons the Chiefs have won the last 2 Super Bowls is because Mahomes has gotten a lot better at understanding that sometimes the best play is the easy play. But I also don't think the Chiefs are giving him the easy play. When Patrick Mahomes came out of the game and Carson Wentz came in, do you remember Wentz's, I think it was his first drive, because it was a 3rd down conversion for the Chiefs. I think they had like a 3rd and 5 or a 3rd and 6, and they were backed up pretty good. And Wentz had a short drop. Xavier Worthy was in the slot, ran what you call a whip route. You fake in, quick cut, right back to the outside. Xavier Worthy is super fast. He's going to win that route a lot against man coverage, especially if he gets matched up one-on-one, not with a slot corner, but with a linebacker or a safety. That is what you call easy money. How many times have the Chiefs given Mahomes that throw? And they gave it to Carson Wentz, and Wentz took it. Easy money, first down, chains move. That play's got to be there all the time. All the time. And if Mahomes isn't seeing it, he's got to see it. And if Mahomes isn't being given that play because the temptation is, well, we got Patrick Mahomes. We don't have to make things easy for him. He's going to make the hard stuff look easy. Let's let Mahomes make a play. No, sometimes you got to simplify it, particularly when your quarterback is under siege. The way that Mahomes has been for the better part, really, of this season, but especially this last month. It can't be this over and over again, and the hits keep coming, and the hits keep accumulating, and then on the 4th down, and I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback the decision by Andy Reid to go for it on that 4th down in Browns territory with a 21-7 lead. I thought that was the right call, frankly. Live, my gut reaction to that was, yeah, I think you go for it here. Punting doesn't make a lot of sense. You get the first down, the game is all but over right then and there, and even if you don't, come on. The Browns should send up the white flag with DTR coming in the game for Jameis Winston. You know you're going to win. I was fine. I was totally fine with the decision to go for it there. But play takes too long to develop. Mahomes has to step up in the pocket because he's under pressure. He gets rolled up on. He sprains his ankle. And now what you've got is a lesser version of Patrick Mahomes for Saturday against Houston. A short turnaround, shorter than normal, for the Christmas Day game against the menacing Pittsburgh pass rush. And oh, by the way, we all know Pittsburgh's got a really good pass rush. You know Houston's really good rushing the passer too. You know who else is really good at it? Denver in week 18. You know who else is really good at it this year? Buffalo, Baltimore. Basically anybody the Chiefs are going to play from here on out. Pretty good at rushing the passer. You know what you don't want to have against a team that's good at rushing the passer? A quarterback on one wheel. And now that's what you've got. You've got it because of your own play calling stubbornness, and Reid admitted to it after the game in his own way. You know, that very gruff, we'll get that fixed. You know, I got to do a better job. I gotta help my guys. You've heard one Andy Reid press conference. You've heard them all, right? You can hear it in your head, even if you weren't at the press conference, even if you didn't see the video, even if I didn't play you the audio. You can hear him saying, we have to make sure we clean that up, get that going. I can do a better job for them. That was what Reid had to say after the game. So there's some blame for him. There's certainly some blame for the offensive line that, for the first half at least, looked better than it has in weeks with Joe Thuney at left tackle and Mike Caliendo at left guard. I think it was Mitchell Schwartz, the former Chief, who said on social media that he felt like Thuney's been the best left tackle on the Chiefs roster since the day he was signed. He held his own. He only gave up one pressure to Myles Garrett in the first half of action. Just one. Garrett got 5 in the second half because the Chiefs kept doing these straight drops. They weren't moving the pocket. They weren't doing any play action. They didn't give Mahomes a chance. It was such bad play calling. It was really bad. And this is the end result that you have to live with. And now you have to make a real calculation about, are we going to send Mahomes out there in a short week? with another short week coming up. How do we manage this situation while still putting ourselves in position to get the bye, which now we really need because our quarterback's dinged up, and make sure the AFC runs through Kansas City? You're dealing with a lot fewer questions right now if you just protect your quarterback. Run the ball. Keep the other defense honest. All the stuff we've been saying. Look, I'm not a brain surgeon, and I'm sure as hell not a Hall of Fame football coach. But if I can figure out this stuff, and if you in the YouTube comments can figure out this stuff, why is Andy Reid continuing to throw the ball and abandon the run with these big second half leads? And it's not just abandoning the run and going to the pass, because look, you got to be able to throw the ball in this league. Those aren't my words. Those are Andy Reid's words. And he's right. You do have to be able to throw the ball consistently. And when you've got Patrick Mahomes, like we've talked about, having Mahomes is like having a sports car. You want to take it out. You want to open up and go for a real spin. Let that throttle down and everything. But you have to put him in better position to not get hit, to take care of himself, to take better care of the ball. And the Chiefs didn't do that. They failed. They failed Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes failed a little bit himself. He's not alone in this. But the offensive line and the coaching staff failed Patrick Mahomes yesterday. Now he's hurt. And like I said, I'm not going to be the guy who worries about, well, how's this going to affect Patrick Mahomes? How will he play on an ankle sprain? I've seen him play on an ankle sprain. We all have. It's pretty good. It's pretty darn good. So I'm not all is lost, rending garments. It's just so stupid that this happened because we knew it was going to happen. We could see it coming, and it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. A very, very frustrating thing to have had to see at the end of what should have been a largely enjoyable Chiefs game. But again, how enjoyable can a game be when you punt 9 times? Do you know how many times Matt Araiza punted in October? 6. Punted 9 times yesterday. And it's all the more frustrating. I think it was Mark B pointed this out in the YouTube chat. I'm going to scroll up and see if I can't find it. They left a wealth of riches out on the field yesterday, says Mark. What makes them so consistently frustrating? Given opportunities, they too often fail to deliver. Yeah, only getting 14 points off 6 turnovers is wild. Most teams that go +6 in the turnover margin, they average 35 points a game. The Chiefs scored just 21. The Chiefs had that one scoring drive in the second quarter, 14 plays, 87 yards, great mix of the run and the pass. The splash play on the screen pass to Samaje Perine feels like the first time they've called a screen pass in weeks. Do they ever try to run one again? No. Why would they do that? But they'll have a drive like that every game, doesn't it seem like? One just perfect symphony of offensive football. Just mush a team, dog walk them down the field. 14 plays, 87 yards is a tail kicker of a drive. And it makes you wonder why they can't do it every time. It should make you feel good knowing that it's there, knowing that it can be that easy, but more often you leave frustrated. You just leave wanting more. Another Chiefs win that it left you wanting more, and you had to watch the quarterback hobble off the field. That's why we open with frustration on this Victory Monday. But there'll be a lot more good things to say about this Chiefs team, particularly the performance of the defense. We're going to get to that later on as we go along in the program today. Matt Verderame will join us bottom of this hour. We'll get his thoughts as well, our NFL insider. It is 3:29. We're just getting started on this Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Good, bad, ugly time. Wrapping up the weekend that was in sports. My good for the weekend. I enjoyed my weekend. I'll say that my good was KU getting back in form and Zeke Mayo in particular having a big game at home as KU scored the first 15 points and ran through North Carolina State. A nice return to form for Bill Self's crew, 10th ranked team in the country. They really, really needed that. So that's my good for the weekend. My bad for the weekend is the over hit in Army Navy. And that feels, I don't know. We used to have a country, we used to have a proper country. And now Army and Navy are going over the total in their games. And I think that's, a reflection of our society, frankly, that Army and Navy are scoring points now, have these high-powered offenses and playmakers up and down their lineups, and they're not butting heads for 60 minutes and playing 13-10 games like back when we had a real country. It's outrageous seeing Army Navy that many points. Feels un-American to see Army and Navy combined for that many points. Also, Bryson Daly for Army, woof. Rough day for him. Had a great season, but boy, he was not good on Saturday as Navy pulled the upset. My ugly, Marshall opting out of the Independence Bowl this late in the process has really made a mess. And I don't fully blame Marshall for opting out of their bowl game. They lost their coach. They've lost a bunch of guys to the portal. I get it, but also I get the frustration from the bowl people saying, look, if you thought there was a chance you were going to lose your coach and all these guys to the portal, maybe don't accept our invite. Maybe don't swear up and down you're going to play until you pull the rug over 2 weeks away, because what that does is it limits the pool of teams you can realistically pick from, because every other team is going through things like portal departures and, winter break, not having guys on campus. The Independence Bowl ended up taking Louisiana Tech to fill the spot. Now, Louisiana Tech's way down there in the list of 5-7 teams when it comes to APR. Kansas is higher. Cincinnati, I think, had the highest APR of any 5-7 team. But I wonder how many of those programs just didn't have enough guys on campus to get everybody back together. Oh, we haven't been practicing for 2 weeks. We didn't think we were going to a bowl. Now we got a week and a half to get ready to go to Shreveport for Christmas. Honestly, I'm not going to be that hard on Marshall for making the decision that they made. The timing of it is bad. And the fact that Louisiana Tech got selected over more deserving teams is bad. And the fact that there's a bowl game in Shreveport, Louisiana over Christmas at all is maybe something we need to leave in the past. I like the bowl games, but I understand why maybe you don't want to spend Christmas in Shreveport. I understand. That is my ugly. Matt Verderam joins me next. We're going to talk all things NFL at 580 Sports Talk. We are out to Matt Verderam, looking to connect with our NFL insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Hopefully that we can do that here shortly. Matt typically joins us at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And we will look forward to hopefully Matt joining us here in just a little bit. Lots to talk about from week 15 of the NFL season, including, of course, the Chiefs and their 21-7 win over the Browns. Also, we'll get to some other action from the league, including the big games. I don't know how it worked out. The networks, I think, needed to have a conversation and put one of those games early and one of those games late, because there were only two games worth half a damn watching on TV yesterday. They were both in the same late window, and typically you don't get a doubleheader in the or one game on each station in the late window nationally. But CBS did have Bills and Lions, and Fox had Steelers Eagles, and one of those games should have been early, because that early slate was slop. Just some of the worst football you've ever seen in the early window. And it was unfortunate, because if you weren't able to double screen, you missed out on maybe one of those games. Although in the end, Steelers Eagles kind of ended up being pretty one-sided. Eagles kept the Steelers at arm's length for the better part of the second half, and ended up rolling in that game 27-13. Lions Bills was everything we thought it was going to be, and the Bills ended up pulling out the 48-42 victory. One thought I had about Bills Lions, and I'll get to it here again. We're hoping we can connect with Matt Verderam here on 580 Sports Talk. The pregame show I was watching, I don't usually watch pregame shows. I can't stomach the network pregames, like the Fox NFL Sunday and the NFL Today on CBS. I don't care for either of those shows. The casts don't do it for me. The insight, like I don't. If I gotta watch pregame show, it's either gonna be Sunday NFL Countdown or it'll be the one on NFL Network. But I was watching Sunday NFL Countdown yesterday, and they were talking at one point about the Lions and the Bills. And in the same breath, whoever it was talking, I don't remember who it was. Might have been Teddy Bruschi, Alex Smith. It wasn't Mike Greenberg. I don't remember who it was. But they said, this is a matchup of the two most complete teams in the NFL. And in the same breath asked, the big question is anybody going to be able to get a stop? I think if you have questions about a defense like that, no matter how good the opposing offense is, then maybe those aren't the most complete teams in the NFL. Maybe the Bills aren't super complete if they just gave up 40 plus in back-to-back weeks. You know, just a thought on that maybe those aren't the most complete teams in the NFL. And the Lions, they're not going to be able to field a defense at this point. With all of the injuries they've had, they've got a full starting defense that is either currently hurt or on injured reserve and not coming back. And not in the sense of, it's just some guys. Like, it's studs. Like, it's Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best pass rushers in the league, but it's also like real guys with some dudes. So I take issue with the idea that, these are the most complete teams in the NFL. Yeah, I don't know that that's how I feel right now about the Lions and the Bills. Certainly not the Lions. I think they might just be too beat up on defense. But we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll see if we can't connect with Matt Verderam and get his thoughts as we continue on here, hour number one of 580 Sports Talk. 346 on 580 Sports Talk. Still out to Matt Verderame, our NFL insider. Hopefully we get a chance to connect with him, if not before the end of this hour, before the end of the program today. Lots to get to regarding the NFL. Lots to get to regarding the Chiefs, including this breaking news. Apparently, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is no longer a Chief, and the source on that is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's not been an official move announced by the Chiefs, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire took to his Twitter account at Clydro_22 and tweeted this 15 minutes ago, quote, "Love you, KC, a family I didn't know I needed. Y'all made a kid from Baton Rouge dreams come true. Chiefs Kingdom, it's all love, and the support I had in troubling times will forever be unmatched from you guys. With love, Clydro." So that sounds like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has been on not injured reserve. He started the year on the short term, the non-football injury list, and has been inactive for every game that he has been a part of the 53-man roster for this season. It sounds like he is no longer a Kansas City Chief. And look, you have to talk about it from the business side of it first, which is Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not deliver on what you would expect a first-round draft pick to deliver on. That is true. That is a reality of the business, and those were the expectations when he was the 32nd overall draft pick by the Chiefs, and he never lived up to those in his time in Kansas City. But obviously dealt with some things off the field that who knows how they impacted him as a player, certainly impacted his ability or his availability this past off season. And hopefully Clyde lands on his feet. We think we might have Matt Verderame on the line with us. Matt, are you there?
I am.
Hey.
I am. I apologize.
Hey, no worries, Matt. Matt Verderame is our NFL insider. He joins us every week on 580 Sports Talk, covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated and SI.com. And Matt, we'll just go ahead and jump right into Chiefs-Browns. What right now is the biggest problem for the Chiefs passing game? Is it the offensive line? Is it the play calling? Is it Mahomes hanging on to the ball too long? What's culprit number one for the Chiefs throwing the football?
I think you have to say it's the offensive line. I think that's almost like a prerequisite. They can't block. I mean, there are times where they give up more than 10 quarterback hits in a half of football. There are teams that don't give up 10 quarterback hits in any game in the season. So I think that's number one. But a very close cousin is the way they call plays. I don't understand for the life of me what they were doing in the second half of that game once they got up 21 points. I mean, they had two drives in a row leading 21-7, where if you combined the time that they held the ball, it did not equal 50 seconds because they threw 6 straight incomplete passes. I don't get it. I don't understand the thought process. It feels like they're calling plays that they're picking out of a hat. There's no rhyme or reason. Like, if I asked you, what is their identity on offense? What is their offensive identity? I have no idea what the answer to that question is. And that, to me, is on the coaches.
It felt like in that game, it was an opportunity on the defensive side of the ball to get some swagger back. And the Chiefs end up forcing 6 turnovers and holding the Browns to 7 points. Some of that is you're playing the human loot box, Jameis Winston, who is a walking interception. But how much of what we saw from the Chiefs, particularly with regards to the pass rush and the forcing of the turnovers, how much is that is something they can build on for these final 3 regular season games and beyond?
Well, so you're right. I mean, some of that is, look, Cleveland is Cleveland. They were hell-bent on giving away that game, and they did. I think the pass rush, though, is a real thing the Chiefs can build on. Because their pass rush in pockets has been very good the last couple of weeks. They got 3 sacks against the Raiders. They got 3 sacks against the Chargers. They hit Herbert a lot. Well, they hit Winston a lot. It wasn't even just the sacks, the 5 sacks. They also they hit them in the double digits. They got home with blitzes, but they got home with 4. This is a case, I think, of this is not, just all of a sudden, hey, they found something. Charles Menahu came back. That's what happened. I mean, it's like a baseball team when the lineup is okay, but then you put in a big hitter in the middle of the order, and all of a sudden everybody else starts getting better because they're in the right spots. Amenahu coming back has energized this group, and I also think they're getting better coverage on the back end. Williams is playing well. So you don't have these immediate, easy throws to one side of the field all the time. I think they can build on this. And look, they're going to play a Houston team on Saturday that realistically is not very good. I mean, if you look at Houston this year, they beat Buffalo in early October. They have beat nobody. I mean, they have beaten the absolute dregs of the league in every other game they've won this year. They did not look good against Miami. I watched a lot of that game. That was not an impressive offensive showing by any means. So I expect the Chiefs defense to have another good game Saturday.
Matt Verderame is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, the marquee matchup from Sunday, the Bills win a shootout over the Lions, 48-42. The Lions lost 4 players, 3 on defense, and David Montgomery to season-ending injuries in that game. They've got a whole defensive starting lineup full of guys now on IR. Are they just going to run out of personnel? Is it to the point where their Super Bowl aspirations maybe have just taken too big a hit with these injuries?
It does feel like that. It feels like we've reached the point of critical mass for the Lions. You know, we're not talking a couple guys. We're not even talking about one really good player like when they lost us. We're not at the point. I mean, they've lost Anzalone and Davis and Hutchinson and McNeil. I mean, you could make a really good argument other than Brian Branson, the 4 best players in the defense. I mean, they just simply don't have enough good quality players to put out there. And that's why, truthfully, everybody's walking away from that Bills-Lions game going nuts about Allen and nuts about the Bills. And listen, I'm not saying they don't deserve credit. 48 points, a ton of points. Allen looks great. If I had an MVP vote, he would certainly get it. That being said, I actually, in a weird way, kind of look at that game the other way. Like, you should have probably handled the Lions in that game. The Lions are missing everyone. And the Bills are out there giving up 500 and some odd yards in that game and 42 points. And they couldn't get off the field. Like, I mean, look, the Lions, from their perspective, again, they're just trying to duct tape it and scotch tape it and hold on for 3 more weeks. It's going to be tough. But, they do have enough of an offense that maybe they can just outscore somebody for 3 weeks.
The Bills have given up 40-plus each of the last 2 weeks. They're 1-1 in those games. Josh Allen is playing remarkable football, and I agree with you 100%. I think he should be the league's MVP. But do they have problems on defense that they're not going to be able to overcome, or are they at least going to get some reinforcements that might help them on that side?
I think they kind of got him already. I mean, they've got Milano back. Now, I know he left early with the groin, but he's back. I mean, this is not a team that's really going to get a whole lot back. That was their team out there on Sunday. And I know they were banged up a little bit in the second there. I get it. I mean, but the 2 safeties they were missing are not really impact players. And Rasul Douglas is fine. Rasul Douglas is not the reason they're giving up 42 points. And by the way, all those guys played against the Rams, and they got lit up like a Christmas tree. So it's not like if those guys come back, all of a sudden you're adding 2 All-Famers and an All-Pro. I think the Bills are one of those teams that if you can slow them down in the playoffs, you're probably going to beat them. Because I don't think that defense is going to stop too many quality offenses. The question is, can you slow them down? And that really is where you look at a team like Kansas City and go, that's where it's fascinating. Because, you're going to look at Buffalo's offense and the Chiefs' defense and go, well, can the Chiefs hold them? Can the Chiefs hold them to 24? Because if they can, they probably win. Although then you can also make the argument the other way. Can the Chiefs offense ever score a point? I mean, it's just, that game would be so fascinating on so many levels, plus all the history to it. But yeah, look, I think, can they win the Super Bowl? Can Buffalo do it? Yeah. Would I pick them? No, because history says if you're that bad on defense, you're probably not winning the Super Bowl.
Couple of more questions for Matt Verderame, our NFL insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, going back to last Thursday with the Rams' ugly victory over the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers playoff odds are now down around 1%. It's over for them this year. What is the best path forward, you think, for the 49ers as far as what can they do to stay afloat and stay competitive in the NFC, or are they in for some take-your-medicine years?
So I think it's important not to overreact. They've had a year from hell. They've had everybody get hurt. they've had off-field tragedies. Trent Williams losing a child, Travarius Ward losing a child, Ricky Pearsall getting shot. I mean, they have just had a year that, like, I don't know that, if you had it 100 times over, you'd even come close. That being said, I do think they have to be realistic about where they are, and some of that is some of these guys are old. Deebo Samuel probably should be moved this offseason. He has not been great now for years. He's getting older. He's expensive. It's time. I think, they've got to look at the secondary and make some real choices. Travarius Ward, Afunga, they're free agents. Afunga's a damn good player. He's been hurt a lot the last year. So bringing him back, Travarius Ward, he's starting to get that age 30 year. Like, they're going to bring him back. They might have to make some choices there. And then you look at a guy like Purdy, and of course that's going to be the big one, right? Like, what do? I personally, and I plan on asking a lot of people around the league, probably write something on this the next few weeks over at SI, but like my first thought is I'd make him play out year 4. I would. And you know what? I know there's going to be people out there who say, hey, look, you got to pay him. Why? Why not pay him? What is he going to do? He's going to hold out? He's not going to hold out. Even if he holds out, he's not going to miss games. Let him do it. Like, if I'm the Niners, I'm not doing what Jacksonville just did and giving off, $60 million to my quarterback and then watching the whole thing fall apart. Like, I want to see Purdy play really, really good football without some of these, these all-world players he's had around.
All right, last thing, Matt. Got about 30 seconds here. If you had to guess, is Patrick Mahomes going to start a quarterback for the Chiefs on Saturday against Houston?
Yes, because I think he will push like crazy to play. The only way I think he doesn't play is if it's one of these things where he cannot protect himself and Andy feels like, you know what, we don't have a choice. We got to just, for his own good, sit him down. But if he can protect himself, he can move around enough that they feel like he can move out of trouble, way, then yeah, I think he'll play. That's kind of what he's done his whole career.
Matt Verderam joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. You can read him at sportsillustrated.si.com. Catch him on his subscriber-only Patreon, The Matt Verderam Show. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderam. Matt, it is always a pleasure. Thanks for your time. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
That is Matt Verderam, and that will do it for hour number 1 of 580 Sports Talk. We're talking Chiefs defense, KU hoops, DJ Giddens, and what is wrong with you next hour of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of this Victory Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero with you. Just me today. Just me and you and some sports talk for the next 2 hours. So glad you're with me here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our YouTube stream where you can look at me. Just me. I'm the only one on camera. Just me in the control room hanging out with you. If you watch it on YouTube, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can watch it on your browser, your phone, your tablet, your TV. Throw me up on your 80-inch big screen at home if you got a Roku in the YouTube app. It's me. I shaved this morning, so I look as good as it's possible for me to look, facially speaking. Anyway, put me up on the big screen. Or you can watch me on Facebook as well. Facebook page is WIBW News. Tell your grandma who loves posting memes to check out the show on Facebook, WIBW News. Glad you're with me. I appreciate you being along. We got 2 more hours of the show today. Lots more to talk about. We're going to say nice things about the Chiefs. Very frustrated with how the offensive performance led to Patrick Mahomes getting hurt. Wasn't a lot good, really. I mean, they took advantage of the 2 short fields and finished their short field drives with touchdowns. That was literally the difference, the points off of turnovers. They put together one awesome drive, and the kind of drive that's so good it makes you wonder, why can't you just do that all the time? Why can't you do that at least more often, right? And then they hang Mahomes out to dry in the 4th quarter, and he gets hurt. It's a mild high ankle sprain. And I asked Matt Verderam, who you just heard, our thanks again to Matt for joining us, our NFL insider, if he thought Mahomes would play. They would have to hide Mahomes' helmet for him not to play in a game. We speculated about it last week. We talked about, hey, there's a chance. If the Bills get beat in the next 2 weeks and the Steelers get beat in the next 2 weeks and the Chiefs don't, you have the number 1 seed wrapped up by Christmas. Maybe you load manage the Christmas game a little bit. Certainly, if there's nothing to play for, why would you put Mahomes out there against that Pittsburgh pass rush if it doesn't matter if you win or lose? Well, the Lions did not hold up their end of that particular bargain for the Chiefs. And now the Bills are still very much on the heels of Kansas City for that number 1 seed. The magic number is 2. The Chiefs win 2 of their last 3. It doesn't matter what the Bills do. Doesn't matter. Chiefs beat Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver. If they win them all or they win 2 of those 3, then it doesn't matter what Buffalo does. If Buffalo loses to either the Patriots, the Jets, or the Patriots, not bloody likely. But if they did, then the Chiefs would only need to win 1 game the rest of the way. So that still puts the Chiefs in a really good spot, but it could have been an even better spot. And if they had gone into this 3-week stretch only maybe needing to win 1 game of the last 3, you could have made an argument for load managing in the Houston game and then having everybody good to go for the Christmas game, and then you get another long week before Denver. That might have made some sense. Here's the thing. This isn't Madden where you just go into your settings and you say, all right, I'm making Carson Wentz QB1 on my depth chart for the week. Not how it works. You're dealing with real people. You have to go to Patrick Mahomes and say, hey, bud, you're not playing. And you know what Patrick Mahomes is going to say to that? I'd tell you, but I don't think it would be very radio friendly. So as long as he can move, I think he can play, and I think he will play on Saturday. And the Chiefs will go into the short week, and then the even shorter week after that, the Christmas Day game with Pittsburgh, and they got to win 2 of their last 3 if they want to be the 1 seed, because I don't think Buffalo's losing the rest of the way. So that's where we're at with regards to Mahomes' ankle sprain. Also, the Chiefs did just confirm the news that Clyde Edwards-Helaire broke. that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is no longer a Chief. He has been waived by the Chiefs, opens up a 53-man roster spot. I suspect that might be Steven Nelson. He was on the practice squad this past week, wasn't elevated for the game. I think that Steven Nelson probably joins the 53-man roster, but it was getting to be a roster crunch, and I think the Chiefs wanted to keep Clyde as long as they possibly could to do the guy a solid, to make sure he was getting an NFL check in what has been a trying year for him and his health. But it is a numbers game, and you're only allowed 53 on the active roster, and that's where the Chiefs find themselves, unable to move him back to IR for any legitimate reason. They waived him today. So that now has been confirmed by the Chiefs. We're going to talk nice about the Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball, because the defense deserves some flowers for the way they played yesterday in their 21-7 win over the Cleveland Browns. We've also got What Is Wrong With You, and because it's just me doing What Is Wrong With You today, I am presenting two stories to you, and you get to vote on who wins. You can vote on our text line, 785-272-9429. You can also vote in the live chat on our YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not, why not? Jump on in. You get to look at me while I talk. If that's not a selling point for you, I don't know what is. Here's the other selling point. There's a live chat feature on the YouTube, and we've got great listeners, great fans, great friends of the show who are in the YouTube live chat throughout the program, and they're funny, and they know their stuff, and they're welcoming, and you want to be a part of that. And I like to think that it enriches your enjoyment of the program, creates a little bit more community around the program. So appreciate so much those of you who are watching today on YouTube. And if you want to jump in for What Is Wrong With You and vote on who should win, I've got two pretty good stories today. Usually we go into a day and I know what the stories are, and I have a pretty good idea of who's going to win. Today I don't. I don't know which way you guys and gals are going to lean with the vote today. So two stories, that's coming up. Also, going to talk some college sports. DJ Giddens declaring for the NFL draft over the weekend. Super happy for the Kansas State Wildcat. You know, he finished his third all-time in rushing yards in K-State history. Not bad for a kid who was a fullback in high school, right? It's Darren Sproles, Deuce Vaughn, and DJ Giddens. Pretty good company. So DJ Giddens is going pro, talking about what that means for K-State, and I have some thoughts on Giddens' evolution. And also, KU basketball got back on track yesterday. Or Saturday, rather. They beat up North Carolina State. We will talk about that as well. Again, your comments, your questions, your complaints, drop in the YouTube live chat. Text line 785-272-9429. These were something like my exact words on Friday's show. In fact, I can actually go and find, I'm not going to play you my voice. That's a little much. But I can go back to Friday's rundown and my notes. And this is what I wrote as one of my keys to the game for the Browns and the Chiefs. And I'm quoting myself. If you can't be a turnover-creating defense against a man who stood at a post-game podium and said he was asking the Lord to deliver him from pick sixes, then you can't be a turnover-creating defense. I've had some concerns about the Chiefs, justifiable concerns about the Chiefs in that department. Through 13 weeks, they forced just 10 turnovers. And as a result, the team was -4 as a whole in the turnover department this year. Well, now the Chiefs are on the positive side of the ledger. They're +2 in the turnover department this season, and they've gone from forcing just 10 turnovers in 13 games, the third worst turnover creation per game of any team in the league, to now having created 16 turnovers in 14 games. Number one, yes, a lot of that has to do with who you play. And the Browns are like, some of you are like hardcore video gamers. You know the concept of a loot box in like a mystery game. Like you come across at this like a loot box. It's got like if you play like, I don't know. I'm not a big like Call of Duty or like my gaming in that department. Like I don't play like all about much of the shooting games. I peaked at like GoldenEye 007 64. But you come across a box and it's got like a bunch of ammo and some like grenades and some proximity mines that you can see GoldenEye 64 is my frame of reference for this. But that's a loot box, right? Like free stuff. The Browns are a loot box. Offensively, they're a loot box. Just giving stuff away for free. You get a fumble, you get a pick. Loot box. That's the Browns offense. So that's part of it, certainly. And you don't want to overreact to a performance against a team that is very generous with the football, that had turned the ball over 9 times in the last 3 weeks, 3 times exactly in each of their previous 3 games, and on a day where neither quarterback looked all that comfortable throwing the football. There were a lot of throws that were missed, I think, both ways. I think Mahomes, you could tell, was not his sharpest, even in the first half, especially in the second when the pressure started really bearing down on him. But he wasn't the sharpest. He wasn't the most accurate that he's ever been on some downfield throws. So that's part of it. It is. That being said, it's one thing when your turnover that you're creating is catching the ball that the other guy just throws to you, or falling on the ball when the center snaps it wrong and it hits the quarterback in the foot and it rolls to you. I guess one thing to force those turnovers. They count the same. And Jaden Hicks' first career interception counts the same whether or not Dorian Thompson-Robinson hit him right between the 2 and the 1 on his red jersey on the final Browns drive of the game. But the other turnovers the Chiefs forced, those were guys making plays. Trent McDuffie, with his first career interception, boy, pick that one out. That's going to be one of the best interceptions you see all year. Not just going up and making the catch on the corner of the end zone, but the ability to get a knee down inbounds and secure the catch. That was super impressive. That was one of the best catches. I don't care, offense, defense, whatever. That was one of the best catches of the week. Nick Bolton's interception, keeping your eye on the bouncing ball and making sure that that deflected pass didn't hit the ground, that he was able to secure it before he went to ground. That's a great play. Brian Cook, the over-the-top safety, helping out on that post, going up top and making an acrobatic interception. That's making a play. Leo Chanel punching the ball out from Jerome Ford. Chris Roland Wallace on special teams, knocking the ball away from James Prochet. Those are play-making turnovers. And those are the kinds of plays that have really been absent for this defense throughout this season. And performances like that have a way of making things feel better, making you feel like you've got a little swagger back, that you're going to be tougher to score on, as you're going to put your offense in better situations. I thought that was important for the Chiefs, not just to have a turnover or 2, but to have a 6 turnover game. Just makes things feel refreshed on that defensive side. I thought that was super important. Also, I think that it bears noting that the last 3 weeks as a whole, the Chiefs defense has been a lot better, a whole lot better. You look at the level of competition and you say, well, yeah, it should, the defense should play well against they should hold the Raiders to 17, and they should turn the Browns over a bunch and hold them down. And that may be true. But the Chiefs have 32 sacks as a team this year, and more than a third of those are in the last 3 weeks. 11 sacks in the last 3 weeks. You know what happened 3 games ago? Charles Omenihu returned to the lineup. Matt Verderame nodded at this when we had him on in the 3 o'clock hour of the show today. If you missed that, you go to the video, watch the live video, and just hit rewind until you see the graphic, which meant we had Matt on the show. Or you can watch the archive if you're catching it later on. You can listen to the podcast on our website, 580wibw.com. The first hour is already up, which means it's on Spotify already as well. But Matt alluded to this, that Charles Omenihu's return has made things look a lot better for the Chiefs pass rush. Because now, all of a sudden, when Chris Jones is winning his matchup, and Chris Jones was wrecking shop yesterday. I know he didn't get the sack numbers to bear that out, but Chris Jones was awesome yesterday. Snap after snap, he was caving in the line. He was beating Wyatt Tellers, one of the best guards in the league, winning that matchup decisively. Well, now he's winning that matchup, and there's somebody else winning his matchup too, decisively on a lot of those pass rush reps. That wasn't the case for Mike Dana, who's had a tough year. It hasn't been the case for George Karlaftis, who got 2 sacks. But I've come to realize watching Karlaftis this year that he's going to be a guy who most of his sacks are going to be coverage and effort sacks. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. Like, he has 7 sacks. He leads the team in sacks. He might end up with double digits again for a second straight year. Those are good plays, but he's not going to be a guy who, like, he's not Myles Garrett, right? Like, you watch Myles Garrett and you watch George Karlaftis, you're seeing 2 different players. And Karlaftis' wins in the pass rush don't look like Myles Garrett's wins, or they don't look like Max Crosby's wins. He's not quite that sort of, I'm winning one-on-one and I'm in the backfield, I'm blowing up this pass play. This is, I'm going to put some pressure on the outside and I'm going to make sure the quarterback doesn't get outside of me. And if this play lasts too long, I'm going to go and hawk down the quarterback. That's where George Karlaftis is getting his sacks. So he's not necessarily a guy who's winning one-on-one in the same way that like a Garrett or a Crowder, or Khalil Mack, like those guys. But Charles Omenihu can win like that. And so now, this pass rush, which had featured Chris Jones playing at a high level and Tershawn Wharton playing at a high level and Karlaftis doing the things he does well, now all of a sudden you've got a 4th guy that you've got to contend with on those snaps. And the Chiefs racked up 5 sacks yesterday and have 11 in the last 3 games since Charles Omenihu's been back. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I also don't think it is a coincidence, and Matt Verderame noticed this too. What happened in the first half of the Raiders game? Give you a chance to think on that, what I could be referring to. First half of the Raider game, Nazeeh Johnson was benched. And we don't like to be too hard on Nazeeh Johnson on this show, because we know he's Spencer's guy, right? He's a Marshall guy. You root for, the smaller school guys, the third day picks, guys coming off of a terrible injury, pulling for him. The coaches obviously see something with Nazeeh Johnson. He's going to be around, but he wasn't playing well. And he was being put in a bad spot, particularly after the injury to Jalen Watson. It was not an assignment that Nazeeh Johnson could handle. Joshua Williams was much more built for the assignment. Now, he hadn't played well. And to the extent that he was benched, he had earned that benching. But he's come back into the lineup since the Raider game. And he's played really well. He's played physically. He's got a couple of passes defensed. He's racking up some tackles. Got a tackle for a loss in that stretch. And now it feels like there's not so many easy pitch and catch throws to be had against the Chiefs secondary, because guys like Johnson and Roland Wallace were giving up a lot of those. And those throws haven't been there as much the last 3 weeks, it doesn't feel like. That's not to say everything is fixed on the back end, but if there are enough pass plays that aren't easy, get to the peak of your drop, step forward and release because the coverage is better, you know what that's going to lead to? Naturally, more sacks. And ultimately, it's going to lead to turnovers. When quarterbacks try to force the ball into tighter coverage, when quarterbacks are throwing more under duress, have to hold the ball longer. So Joshua Williams and Charles Omenihu coming back into the lineup for this Chiefs defense at the same time, I think that's been a huge boost. And this defense the last 3 weeks, and especially yesterday, starting to look like the defense we thought it could look like at the beginning of the year. Now, there are challenges still to come. C.J. Stroud and company against Houston this Saturday. Pittsburgh's multidimensional offense on Christmas. An improving Denver offense in the season finale if the Chiefs aren't in a position to have clinched the number 1 seed by then. So we're going to get more of a litmus test for this defense here in the next 3 games, the final 3 games of the regular season. But you can see it coming back into form. You can see a group by the end of yesterday's game that felt like it had its swagger back a little bit. It's what Trent McDuffie talked about with Mitch Holthus, and we talked about it with Mitch on the show on Thursday when we alluded to this conversation on our instant reaction video on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, after the win yesterday. Confidence sometimes is something that leads to turnover creation, feeling like I'm going to catch this ball. I'm going to knock this ball out of the running back or wide receiver's hands. I'm going to strip the quarterback. Chiefs were unlucky not to force a seventh turnover when Charles Omenihu had a strip sack. This kind of stuff is contagious. And in a year that's been a real challenge for the Chiefs to create big plays, being able to create 6 of them in one game is the kind of thing, when you add it to the personnel changes and how it has changed what the defense looks like these last 3 weeks, feels like a sign of things to come. Not saying 6 turnovers a week, but that felt like a harbinger of good things to come even further for the Chiefs defense. And with as much as the Chiefs offense has struggled to find consistency, they're going to need to play at that level. They want to win a 3rd Super Bowl in a row. Take a break. We'll come back. What is wrong with you is next. And it's choose your own adventure, listeners. You get to vote on who wins today's What is Wrong with You. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. It is What Is Wrong With You time on 580 Sports Talk. Two new stories compete. This is the last full week of What Is Wrong With You in 2024. The last week that we will have Monday through Friday, What Is Wrong With You. Next week, we will only be on the air Monday and Friday. We are off Tuesday because it is Christmas Eve. We are off Wednesday because it is Christmas and the Chiefs are playing. We are off Thursday because of the Rate Bowl. The Kansas State Wildcats are playing in their bowl game. So we've only got two shows next week. And then the week after that, might only have one show. We're still figuring out our schedule for the last 2 days of December. But we will crown before the 3rd of January. We will crown a 2024 What Is Wrong With You champion. We may have to take it into the next calendar year, which we've never done before. But hey, don't they crown the Super Bowl winner for 2024 in 2025, technically? We can do that. We make the rules. We do whatever we want on What Is Wrong With You. So this is the last full week. And since it's just me today, I'm Dan Lucero, by the way. I don't know if I've introduced myself. My name is Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is out today. He should be back tomorrow. Brendan Dworzinski remains on paternity leave. So it's just me today. And I've got two new stories for you today. And you're going to get to vote. So jump in, if you're not in already, to YouTube. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. Or you can watch on Facebook at WIBW News. And you can comment which story you think should win between our two stories today. And I've got names for these two stories. One of them is a really obvious name. The other one, maybe not so obvious. First story today, I call it Flipping Bricks. Flipping bricks, but not that kind of brick. Not like the bricks that your favorite rapper is talking about flipping. No, these are Lego bricks. Meet 33-year-olds Brian Fleming and Ladarian Anderson of Lancaster, Texas, who are accused of stealing thousands of dollars of Lego sets over the last 3 years from several stores like Target and Walmart across Texas, Oklahoma, Philadelphia, that's an oddly specific location, and Florida. So per the affidavit, these two men would buy items at the big box stores, usually under $2, with their credit and debit cards. Then they would alter the receipts to make it look like they bought expensive Lego sets. Later, their co-conspirators, plural, would enter the store, pick up the listed expensive Lego sets, and walk out. If the thieves were questioned by a store clerk, they simply produced the altered receipt. The group of at least 10 people would then sell the stolen Lego sets to another man who was selling highly stolen items. Not just stolen items, folks, highly stolen items. I don't know if that's a commentary on the mental state or the maybe medically altered state of the people committing the crimes, but these were highly stolen items, folks. And they would be sold on online platforms like Amazon and eBay with as much as a 70% discount from their retail value. The affidavit estimated the Lego sets the group stole were worth a combined $400,000. Fleming and Anderson have both been charged with engaging in organized crime and theft over $300,000. They are both being held on bond over $1 million. So that's Flipping Bricks, a wide-ranging scheme to sell Legos. I never got huge into Legos. Like, I played with them when I was a kid, but I guess, like, it was never, like, my favorite thing to play with. Let me just say, I wasn't much of a builder. Like, I had an erector set, you know, the what do you call it, the Lincoln Logs. And I could be happy with those for a little bit, but I just wanted to go play catch. Like, that was my get down. So, I know they're expensive, though. I know that can be a really expensive hobby if you get really, really into the Legos. Paul in the YouTube live chat says thousands of dollars in Legos is really like 5 sets. I mean, yeah, it depends on the sets, right? It really does. It depends on the sets. So that's our first story today. Flipping bricks. Second story today. Call this one the professional drinker. Why do we call it that? Just wait. We're going to my home state, Wheat Ridge, Colorado, where a man was caught on police body camera claiming to be a professional drinker as he was being arrested for causing a multi-vehicle crash. According to police, officers arrived at the scene of the crash and asked the driver how many drinks he had. The man said he'd had, quote, probably 10 drinks. The driver said in the video, quote, and I'm going to try and do my best imitation as to what somebody with probably 10 drinks might sound like. Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, like, I'm a professional drinker. The officer responded, oh, okay. So, all right, I got you. The officer then placed the man in handcuffs. The man blew a .326. That is over 4 times the legal limit. 326. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. I think that would have won the batting championship in Major League Baseball this last season. I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. hit 326. I'm double checking. No, Bobby Witt hit 332. My bad. It only would have won the National League batting championship. Only Bobby Witt Jr. had a higher batting average in Major League Baseball in 2024 than this guy's BAC, and he's out drinking, and he caused a multi-vehicle crash. Now, thankfully, nobody was hurt. I would have had a bit of a moral quandary if somebody had been seriously hurt, the action of this moron. But then he tells the cops, hey, it's okay. I'm a professional. I'm a professional drinker. So those are your 2 stories today, flipping bricks and the professional drinker. Your vote counts. Your vote is requested. If you're watching on Facebook, WIBW News, just leave a comment which story you want. If you are watching on YouTube, jump in the live chat and leave your vote. Flipping bricks or the professional drinker. We'll tally up the votes and announce a winner after we come back from this timeout. Whereupon, we'll talk some KU hoops, and we'll talk about DJ Giddens going to the NFL draft. That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. It's a rout in the voting. The professional drinker will take home the crown today and move on to tomorrow as our What Is Wrong With You winner. Vance asking the important questions in the YouTube live chat. Professional drinker, he's probably a UDFA. Undrafted free agent professional drinker. Yeah, I don't know what you have to do to be a first-round pick in the professional drinking ranks. And frankly, I don't want to know. I do not want to know. But yeah, that he thought he was going to get out of a big problem by saying, "Nah, it's fine. I might blow a 3.26, but I'm a professional. I've got this. I've been training. I get paid." That's professional indicates, right? Implies rather that you get paid for what it is that you do. So you paid? You get paid to drink? Well, I guess I just do it for the love of the game, and certainly not to that extent. I can tell you this: a younger me, back in the day, every now and again would have myself a night, right? Get into the Miller High Lifes and start singing a little too loud. Need a ride home from wherever I was. Maybe you've been in those shoes. Have a night. Been a very, very long time. And I am all but certain I've never been to an extent where I've been 4 times the legal limit housed. But hey, I guess you just leave that to the professionals, right? I'll have a Yingling tonight, and I'm going to do it for the love of the game. I don't need to be a pro. I'll do it for the love of the game. So that's our winner, the professional drinker. Moving on What Is Wrong With You. And important reminders from the likes of Jeffrey and Mark H. and also Paul. Don't drink and drive. Like, really. Do not drink and drive. Please, do not drink and drive. From the weekend that was in college sports, I'll start with KU Hoops. Real quick thought on that. They beat North Carolina State 75-60. Felt like a get-right game for the Jayhawks. Certainly started that way. They scored the game's first 15 points. I guess the rest of the game was a stalemate because KU ended up winning by 15. But quite a start, quite an imprint they made on the game from the very beginning. It got bogged down a little bit. A lot of whistles, a lot of fouls, a lot of chippiness underneath. Hunter Dickinson got to play against like the great value version of himself in Ben Middlebrooks. Like if Hunter Dickinson were several inches shorter and a lot less good at basketball, he'd be Ben Middlebrooks. And like personality wise, they're kind of a fit. So they got under each other's skin for sure. And there were a lot of fouls, and KU had to weather a storm a little bit because KJ Adams was in foul trouble and Hunter was in foul trouble and Flory Badunga was in foul trouble. But KU kept North Carolina State at arm's length, and a big reason they were able to do that, there were 2. Number one, DeJuan Harris was making enough of the open shots that he was given by the opposing team, knocked down 3 3-pointers. And look, if teams are going to give him half a dozen threes a night that are just too open not to take, I think if he makes 2 of them every night, that KU will be in really good shape. If he makes 4 of them, because, again, these are going to be wide open shots. You saw the vision that Creighton employed when they beat KU up in Omaha, and Mizzou did some similar things defensively when they beat the Jayhawks, is they don't care if DeJuan Harris shoots threes. They kind of want DeJuan Harris to shoot threes, because if he's shooting threes, he's not creating easier offense for his teammates. So they go ahead and let him shoot threes, and DeJuan hasn't shot him well to start the season either, but if he makes 2 to 3 of the half dozen he's going to get every game, then because there is a point where you are too open to not shoot. You have to shoot, and you have to be able to make them, and it keeps defenses honest. And if DeJuan Harris is going to make half his 3-pointers and Zeke Mayo is going to play the way that he played and Hunter Dickinson is going to put up a double-double, I don't know how you beat KU. I don't. Now, I know how you beat them when those guys don't do those things, because I saw Creighton do it, and I saw Missouri do it. Very easy to see how KU gets beat if they don't get that additional scoring. It can't just be Hunter, and it certainly can't be DeJuan taking a bunch of shots and missing them. But Zeke Mayo plays like that, KU is going to be really, really hard to beat. The trick is to get the kid out of Lawrence to be as comfortable playing away from Allen Fieldhouse as he is clearly playing at Allen Fieldhouse. Because he was a completely different player on Saturday than he was the Sunday previous against Mizzou. Just more confident, stroking the three-point shot, getting downhill to the rim, and really kind of taking the game over for a stretch about midway through the second half when it looked like North Carolina State might really make a run and maybe make it interesting. Zeke Mayo said no. And that was a big moment in the game, and hopefully a big moment for Zeke Mayo. Gives him some confidence. But he's going to have to do it on the road. That's the thing, because with all due respect to the buildings in the Summit League, they don't have a Hilton Coliseum in the Summit League. They don't have a Bramlage Coliseum in the Summit League. They don't have a Fertitta Center, or I don't remember what they're calling the new joint at Baylor. It used to be the Farrell Center. I don't remember what they're calling the new place yet. I'll get it down eventually. But they don't have a lot of venues like that in the Summit League either. So going on the road, hostile environment, have to continue to be able to play with confidence. And I think Zeke Mayo will get there. I think he's too talented and confident enough in his game that he'll get there. And it's really tantalizing what it looks like when he plays at a high level. The other bit of news from the college sports ranks from the weekend. DJ Giddens announced on his Instagram in a statement that was more verbose than any statement he's ever given the media, either verbally or via social media. Kind of a running gag that DJ Giddens is absolutely what you would call the strong silent type. You know, speak softly, carry a big stick, all of that. That's fine. He lets his game do the talking, like whatever cliche you want to use. No problem with that. DJ Giddens announced on his Instagram over the weekend that he's going pro. He is going to declare for the 2025 NFL draft. I would assume that means he will not play in the bowl game. It certainly means that the picture, the depth chart for K-State looks a lot clearer at running back next year. Number one, it's an opportunity to get Dylan Edwards the football. Something that was a struggle for K-State's offensive staff to do this past season. And I understand when you have a clear running back number one, and make no mistake, DJ Giddens was clearly running back number one. This was not a 1-1A situation. DJ was that dude. He's the third all-time leading rusher in K-State history. He was the guy that you can give 25, 30 carries a game to. It was not a situation where you wanted to ask Dylan Edwards to do something that DJ Giddens could do himself. I understand that it would have been difficult for Connor Riley and Matt Wells then to find ways to get Edwards his touches, and they felt like they had to be too creative about it. It made him a gadget guy. He's a better player than that. That's the difficulty, is Giddens is so good that you didn't really get a chance to give Edwards touches in that role, where I think he'll be excellent next year. I really do. I think Dylan Edwards is going to have a super season next year for the Kansas State Wildcats. And I think that Joe Jackson was really impressive in his opportunities, and I think we're going to see some of him next year, because I really believe that there's more to Dylan Edwards than just being like the single back in a one back set, a guy that you want to run, but hammer him between the tackles. I think Joe Jackson's got a role next year too, and I think that K-State's rushing offense won't miss much of a beat with Edwards and Jackson being 1-2 next year, compared to what it was when it was Giddens and Edwards 1-2 this year. I do wonder, and Mark points this out in the YouTube live chat, Mark B does, that it seems like K-State has retained Dylan Edwards' services for next season. You wonder if it was an either or. You wonder if Giddens had decided he was going to come back, if maybe Dylan Edwards would have said, well, I don't want to be running back two for another year. And transfers are free now. Maybe I go find somewhere else to play. Thankfully, that's not a problem that K-State has to deal with. And I think any running back with a chance to declare for the draft should just declare for the draft. Go get paid. Go get some NFL money while you can. But the other thing that's really cool about this is it's just such a remarkable story. Because I remember 2019 covering high school sports in this area. And 2019 was Kai Thomas's senior year at Topeka High. And Devin Neal was at Lawrence. and DJ Giddens was at Junction City. And I got to see all three of those guys play in high school. I got to see Neil and Thomas play against each other in a playoff game in the fall of 2019. It's one of the best high school football playoff games I've ever seen. And if you had asked me back then, like, buy stock in these three guys, who's going to have a better college career? Who's got a better chance of getting to the next level? I had seen a lot of Kai Thomas. I might have bet on Kai. Unfortunately, Kai dealt with some injuries, and his college career hasn't maybe quite worked out the way that he would have hoped. He's got one more year of eligibility. I don't know if he's going to use it. But I would have also said to you, man, I think Devin Neal might be faster. He might have the same vision of Kai Thomas, but he might be faster. And, of course, Devin Neal went on to a great career. I don't know what I would have told you about DJ Giddens back in 2019, but I certainly would not have told you that's going to be a top 5 running back in K-State history. And that's not a knock on DJ. It's just that's where he was. That was the perception. He was the fullback at Junction City. He was not the feature tailback on his high school team. Now, he was multidimensional. Randall Zimmerman knows how to use his fullbacks. He was a multidimensional player. He could catch out of the backfield. He could do a lot. It was clear he's a very good football player, but I don't think anybody saw this. And it's a testament, again, to what K-State has done better than just about any program in the country over the years. Take in-state kids and turn them into pros. DJ Giddens is a great story, and I'm going to be rooting for him. I hope that he finds a place to play in the draft and that he goes on to a great NFL career. It's a great story. We'll take a break. We'll come back, wrap up this hour. 580 Sports Talk next. Real quickly, a look at our Prairie Man Sportsbook 580 Sports Talk picks contest for the week. Spencer and I went head-to-head on the Army-Navy total, and it did go over the 40, so Spencer got me there. I went 1-2 on the week. My only hit was the Broncos -4 over the Colts. More about that stupid game and the Colts blowing a playoff spot because the dumbest play in football somehow keeps happening. Happened twice on Sunday. I can't believe it. Spencer went 1-1. He's got Minnesota -6.5 tonight. So if the Vikings cover against the Bears, then he's going to pass me up. He'll be half a game ahead of me going into next week's picks. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we got our 580 Sports Talk headlines from the weekend and the day. Lots going on to get to in headlines. We'll recap Week 15, the NFL, some final Chiefs thoughts as well. Hang with us. We got one more hour today on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. So good to be with you here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And on our live video stream, check us out. Check me out today. I'm the only one on the video. YouTube.com. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch me on Facebook, WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero, solo dolo here on this Monday edition of the program. Spencer Dupuis out today. Brendan Dworzinski remains on paternity leave. Got a jam-packed night of sports on the Sports Voice of Kansas coming up after we're done here on 580 Sports Talk. Of course, you got the Chiefs Kingdom show coming up. Mitch Holtis at a Hy-Vee location somewhere in the greater Kansas City area, talking Chiefs. I love listening to the beginning of Chiefs Kingdom. I don't have a very long commute home, so I don't get to hear the whole show on my drive home, but I always get to hear the first 5 minutes. And I love the first 5 minutes of Chiefs Kingdom with Mitch Holtis because it's like a pep rally. And he's getting people fired up, and everybody knows the words. It's almost like church. Like everybody knows the call and responses, because folks, that was huge, and putting the hammer down. I unironically love the first 5 minutes of Chiefs Kingdom. I never miss it. I always turn it on to hear the first 5 minutes of Chiefs Kingdom on my very short commute home. That's coming up. And then following that, Westwood One coverage of Monday Night Football tonight. There is a Monday night doubleheader, which I didn't realize until like this morning. Completely oblivious to the rest of the NFL schedule. It's you get really myopic when you cover a team like we do here. Like the Chiefs dominate the NFL conversation, and there are times I go into a week and I don't know. Like ostensibly, I have a favorite team, and I didn't know until last Sunday that they were playing Sunday night. I wish they hadn't. I wish they'd canceled that game. That was bad. Everything was bad. Didn't enjoy it in the least. But you get really myopic when you're covering a team and you view the whole league through that prism, and other stuff kind of gets lost in the wash, like the fact that there are 2 Monday night games tonight. We will be bringing you coverage of the game between the Raiders and the Falcons. That is the later kickoff, so it kicks off at 7:30. So we will bring you that game and its pregame coverage in its entirety here on 580 WIBW. And then following Monday Night Football, tape delayed tonight, we will bring you the Jeff Mittie Show. We'll hear from the head women's basketball coach of the 13th ranked team in the country, the Kansas State Wildcats. They play on Wednesday night. They had a game initially scheduled for Tuesday. It got moved to Wednesday. One more game before the holiday, before Big 12 play starts. They play at home against New Mexico State on Wednesday night. So Chiefs Kingdom, Monday Night Football, Jeff Mittie Show, all coming up tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Here in the final hour of 580 Sports Talk, going to get into Week 15 of the NFL. 2 big games, marquee matchups. Only one of them really delivered. And I got questions about the Bills, even in victory, and I got big questions about the Lions. I'm not sure they're going to be able to answer because they might be too injured to finish the job in the NFC. Also, some final thoughts on the Chiefs, including, have you ever seen a worse miss from Harrison Butker in his career than that 29-yarder he yanked? I still don't think he looks right. I mean, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about another big game for Charles Omenihu. We'll get some final thoughts on the Chiefs' victory over the Browns, 21-7 on Sunday. Even the 2-score wins this year for the Chiefs haven't felt like 2-score wins. That's the whole thing, right? Oh, well, the Chiefs, they don't cover the spread. Every game is close. Every game goes down to the wire, and it's not pleasant. And, well, okay, they won by 2 touchdowns yesterday. Well, it wasn't all that pleasant either because the offense got bogged down. They punted 9 times, and Patrick Mahomes got hurt. So we'll get there. We'll wrap up the program. Again, your comments in the YouTube live chat are welcome if you are watching along on YouTube. Again, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. If you're not watching along on YouTube, why not give it a shot? Put us up on your phone or your tablet or your laptop or your streaming device of choice on your smart TV or your Roku or Google TV, whatever you got. give the live stream a shot. And if you've never been, why don't you subscribe to the YouTube page? Because then you get notified when we go live, and not just for 580 Sports Talk, which every edition of 580 Sports Talk is live and then archived summarily on the YouTube page. Also, our instant reactions. Like we went live yesterday after the Chiefs beat the Browns. If you felt like we were a little delayed getting the instant reaction off the ground yesterday, we like to get those running pretty quick. We were indefinitely delayed yesterday because I was pinned in my chair by a sleeping 6-month-old. And I was not about to wake up my son to go talk football with y'all. It was going to have to wait. Your priorities change over time. So my apologies. We were not as quick off the mark with the instant reaction, Spencer and I, yesterday, because I had a sleeping, napping baby resting on my left shoulder. It was really cute, actually. If you guys could have seen it, you would have thought, oh, that's sweet. Anyway, but all our videos are on the YouTube page, and you should subscribe. We're 11 subscribers away from 700. That's a cool milestone for us to get to. Subscribe to the YouTube today if you have not. Again, the YouTube page is 580 Sports Talk. All right, let's do some headlines, shall we? We'll start with the Chiefs and their headlines today. Obviously, the big news, Patrick Mahomes' injury. The reporting on this has been all over the place, but to try and sum up the consensus as far as the reporting on Mahomes' right ankle injury goes, it is being reported as a mild high ankle sprain. A source telling ESPN's Adam Schefter that the Chiefs don't think it's bad. I don't know that there are many ankle sprains that are good, but they don't think this one is bad. And that the Chiefs will evaluate Mahomes throughout the week and then see if he's going to play on Saturday. Do you know who doesn't think Patrick Mahomes is going to play on Saturday against the Texans? Our friends in the desert, which is to say the folks who set the lines in Vegas, because the Chiefs opened as a home underdog. And I could count on, I don't even need a full hand to tell you how many times the Chiefs have been a home underdog in the Patrick Mahomes era. But they are a home dog. Right now, one sports book I'm looking at, 2.5 in favor of Houston. I'm trying to call up our friends up at Prairie Band and see. It would probably help if I could spell Prairie Band correctly to be able to pull up their sports book. Give me a moment. But one sports book has it Houston minus 2.5. And right now up in Mayetta at the Prairie Band sports book at the Prairie Band Casino and Resort, it is also the Texans favored by 2.5 points. That would be a line you would expect if the Chiefs quarterback were going to be Carson Wentz. So I think that's an early indication of where at least Vegas thinks the wind is blowing. But again, we've seen Patrick Mahomes' movies. We know what it takes to keep him out of a game. It takes a knee that doesn't look like a knee. Remember that dislocation he suffered on the last quarterback sneak he'll ever run in his career against the Broncos on Thursday Night Football? He thought he was done for the year. He came back in 3 weeks. So I do think Mahomes is going to play. And if you're into that kind of thing, you can get the Chiefs and points at home. If you like to gamble, if you like to sprinkle a little cash here and there, I would run, not walk, to get the Chiefs and points this Saturday. Because I think they're better than the Texans. If Mahomes plays, I think they're going to win. So, but that is interesting that the sports books, the major ones, our local one up at Prairie Band, have the Chiefs as home dogs, because that would suggest to me a line of thinking that doesn't think Mahomes is going to make it to Saturday. So he's day-to-day, but then again, aren't we all? The other Chiefs news of the day, Clyde Edwards-Helaire waived by the Chiefs. They've got to make room on the 53-man roster. One would imagine it's for Steven Nelson, who was added to the practice squad last week. Edwards-Helaire has not played this season, started the year in the non-football injury list, has been inactive for every game since coming off of the NFI list. I'm trying to put the pieces together as best I can. Obviously, there was the the incident, the shooting at the Chiefs Super Bowl parade back in February, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire was there at the parade, and it seems as though that may have been a triggering event for him, dealing with some PTSD from an incident, a shooting incident that happened in his life, where he shot a person in self-defense, or someone he was with shot a person in self-defense. It's never been entirely made clear, but an incident from earlier in Clyde Edwards-Helaire's life that has led to some PTSD and some other issues, physical issues that he's had to deal with, and he had to deal with those things upon the start of training camp, and it made it impossible for him to go through practice, never mind play. So the Chiefs have been able to keep him on the roster for this long, but they're in a roster crunch, and at some point you do have to move on from the guy who's not going to play, and that is kind of what Clyde Edwards-Helaire is obviously a guy who is behind Pacheco and Hunt and Steele and Pirine in the hierarchy when it comes to running backs, and he wasn't going to play. And I appreciate the Chiefs, and I'm sure Clyde Edwards-Helaire appreciates the Chiefs keeping him aboard and on the roster as long as they could, but it really wasn't tenable any longer. So those are the Chiefs headlines of the day. Let's get to some other sports headlines. Got a lot of college sports headlines today. We'll start with the headline from over the weekend. Travis Hunter is your 2024 Heisman Trophy winner, the two-way star of the Colorado Buffaloes, with a narrow advantage in the voting. Ashton Jeanty from Boise State ended up finishing second in the balloting, and Cam Ward, the quarterback of Miami, came in third. I really got to understand why it wasn't unanimous for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman Trophy. And that is not a knock on Ashton Jeanty, who is awesome and fun to watch and had an unreal season, put up some crazy numbers at running back for Boise State, helped them make the playoff, the first G5 team to get into this new 12-team playoff. He won the Maxwell Award, another award that goes to Outstanding College Football Player of the Year, won the Doak Walker, deserved both. Ashton Jeanty, great player, great season. But you know what he didn't do? Also win the Defensive Player of the Year award in the country. You know who did that and won the Biletnikoff Award for the best wide receiver in the country? Travis Hunter. So you're going to have to convince me that the guy who won the Bednarik Award for the best defensive player and the Biletnikoff Award for the best wide receiver, you're going to have to tell me why that's not the best college football player in the country. You're going to have to convince me that Ashton Jeanty was more deserving of the Heisman. Jeanty himself said he thought he was, said he should have walked away with it. That's fine. I don't mind him having that attitude. But there are people on Al Gore's internet trying to argue that, Travis Hunter isn't actually that good. He was actually kind of mid at defense. It was a gimmick. It was just a gimmick, him playing both ways. What are you talking about, you fools? Do you watch games? Do you listen to music, or do you just skim through it? Watch the games. There was nobody like that guy wearing number 12 for the Colorado Buffaloes this season, because every time he touched the ball on offense, he was a threat to score a touchdown. He made some of the best catches you've seen. He went over 1,000 yards while playing defensive back as well as anybody in the country. He's mid. No, he's not. He's awesome. I am as big a Deion Sanders hater as anybody on God's green earth. That has been the case since I was 8 years old. I have not backed off of that stance, even though Colorado went 9-3. Because you know what? Bernie Madoff made some people rich. He was still a scammer. He was still a con artist. I still think this is a con that Deion Sanders is running, and we're going to see how it works when he doesn't have the Heisman Trophy winner and a top 5 NFL draft pick at quarterback on his team next year. We're going to see. I don't think it's going to look like this again. I think it's a long con, and it's all about Deion, and nobody else matters, and he will leave Colorado high and dry when it makes sense for him to do that, because this is all about Deion, and it's not about anybody else but Deion. I still believe that. I'm not backing off of my stance on Deion Sanders. But look, man, Travis Hunter was hater-proof. If you watched any of it, he was hater-proof. That award was his after the Baylor game, the conference opener, when he made those plays on offense and then the play on defense to seal the win in overtime. The Heisman belonged to him that day. And there was nothing that happened through the regular season that should have changed anybody's mind. So for the people out there saying Travis Hunter didn't deserve it, he's mid, nonsense. You're a fool. You don't watch the games. You're just a hater to be a hater. Because even this hater can admit when things are hater-proof. And Travis Hunter may play for a coach I don't much care for. But he is hater-proof. And he is a deserving Heisman. And if you voted for Ashton Genty, you got it wrong. Period. You got it wrong. Elsewhere, as we move on in our 580 Sports Talk headlines, we got some opt-outs for bowl season. I nodded at this in the good, the bad, the ugly. Marshall, the champions of the Sun Belt, has opted out of the Independence Bowl. After their coach, Charles Huff, decamped for Southern Miss, and 25-plus players entered the transfer portal, Marshall, who had assured Independence Bowl officials, no, we're good. We're staying in. We're going to play. Decided yesterday they weren't going to play. So that put the Independence Bowl folks in a bind because, that's not one of those games that takes place in January. That's a game that is coming up. That is a game that takes place on the 28th of December. There are 12 days. Didn't even give 2 weeks notice. Didn't even give a full 2 weeks. Didn't even give a full 14 days notice that they weren't going to play in the game. So the way that it would have worked is you go down the list, you find the next bowl eligible team. Well, there weren't any more 6-6 teams or better. So there weren't any more bowl eligible teams. So then you go to the 5-7 teams and you look at APR, which is academic progress rate. And you just go down the list and say, hey, do you want to play in the bowl game? I'm guessing most of those schools on the list probably said no because they've got the transfer portal to deal with. They've got kids probably not even on campus, and they haven't been practicing. They had 13 days to practice and then pack up and go to Shreveport, Louisiana over Christmas and do all of the bowl stuff and the hullabaloo while continuing to practice and continuing to get ready for a game. That's a tough ask. I don't blame any program that said, no, that's not for us. I am sure Cincinnati said no. Cincinnati had the best APR of any 5-7 team. I'll bet they said no. Air Force said yes. Air Force was third on the list of teams that were 5-7 under APR. And reportedly, Air Force said, yeah, we'll do it. They probably have more of their guys on campus. They lose fewer of their guys to the transfer portal, have a more full roster. They said, yeah, we'll do it. We'll play. We'll play Army again. Sure. We want another crack at those guys. But the bowl committee decided instead that they would invite Louisiana Tech, who was way down the list of 5-7 teams ranked by APR. They were below Kansas, and Kansas was like 10th or 12th, something like that. But the bowl committee decided to invite Louisiana Tech. It makes sense. Frankly, it's a local school. You might be able to sell some more tickets. You're kind of in a crunch when it comes to selling tickets. You can maybe attract a more local audience. Louisiana Tech doesn't have to travel far to get to Shreveport. It makes a lot of sense for Louisiana Tech to be the sub. Like I said, I don't entirely blame Marshall for opting out. I wouldn't blame any school for opting out of a mid-tier bowl game. I really don't blame them at all. These are all made for TV exhibitions. If you don't have a full enough team, if you've got to change your coach, you don't maybe want to go to Shreveport, Louisiana over Christmas. I don't care if you say no. It is a little crummy that Marshall said yes, and then less than 2 weeks before the game said no. I don't love that, but I don't blame them necessarily for the process that led them to the no in the first place. So Louisiana Tech at 5-7 gets to play a hacked-off Army team that just lost the Army-Navy game. Good luck. Good luck, Bulldogs. I have a feeling you're going to need it. Also opting out, Penn State backup quarterback Bo Prabula. He is going to enter the transfer portal, which would normally not be news. There's lots of players entering the transfer portal. This is why this is news. Penn State is in the playoff, and Bo Prabula might be the backup quarterback, but he gets into games. He has thrown 35 passes this season and completed 26 of them, 5 of them for touchdowns. He was tied for second on the team in rushing touchdowns. Andy Kotelnicki, their offensive coordinator, Andy, he likes a change of pace at quarterback. Bo Prabula was the change of pace, but This is the decision timeline for entering the transfer portal. And it sure sounds like Penn State quarterback Drew Aller, the starting quarterback, is going to come back to State College for his final season of eligibility, or his senior season. And that puts Pribula in a rock and a hard place. If he wants to play next year, he's got to transfer. But if he wants to transfer and give himself the best opportunity to end up in the best situation for himself, he has to do it now. And so he did. He wrote on social media, the overlapping CFB playoff and transfer portal timeline has forced me into an impossible decision. After speaking at length with my family and coaches, it is with a heavy heart that I announced my intentions to enter the transfer portal and depart from the team to explore opportunities elsewhere. It's a bummer for Penn State. It's a bummer for this kid who was going to play. Like, he would have played in their playoff game against SMU. But you have to make a long-term decision for yourself. And for people who look at this and say, well, this is why college sports sucks now because of the transfer portal and it's a bad system, there's no good one. And the NCAA doesn't have anybody to blame for this other than themselves. You either push the portal entry back to January and you have just one portal entry, you don't do the spring thing, or this is the system we got. And I support any adult, and Bo Pribula is an adult, making a decision that is the best for him. Might not be the best decision for his team, but he's got to make a long-term decision for himself and for his own ability to play football. And I don't blame anybody who decides, yeah, I don't really want to sit the bench for 2 years. Like he probably went to Penn State thinking Aller was going to go pro this year. That would have been a safe bet, frankly. This is not a good quarterback class. Next year's quarterback class is a lot tougher. I don't even think Aller's that good in the first place, but this is the year for a guy to get drafted. A guy like Drew Aller to get drafted highly. I'm really surprised he's coming back to school, and I'm sure it caught Pribula off guard. And he's thinking, well, this thing that was kind of promised to me, it's not going to be there. So if I want to play next year, and I'm good enough to play next year, I got to go somewhere else. And it is what it is. I'm sure it's frustrating for the coaches, for his teammates, but you got to make a grown man decision for yourself sometimes. And that's what Bo Pribula is doing. Other college football note to mention, Arrowhead Stadium will play host to another college football game. I'm really only mentioning this because of a very funny quote from the press release. August 28th, Thursday, this coming year, Nebraska versus Cincinnati will take place at Arrowhead Stadium. It'll be the first time those two programs have played since 1906. And part of what was scheduled as a home and home series, it was originally scheduled for 2020, obviously got impacted by COVID-19. So the games have been rescheduled for 2025 and 2033. Cincinnati is giving up their home game in that home and home. So the game in 2033 will be in Lincoln, but this game will be in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. And here is the very funny quote from Troy Dannon, who is the AD at Nebraska. Quote, since arriving at Nebraska, one constant message I have heard from our fans is they miss having road football games that are within driving distance. Y'all gave that up when you joined the Big Ten, man. Y'all gave that up when you joined the Big Ten. And you knew you were giving it up, and you didn't care because the cable dollars were too great, and you didn't care about your fans. You don't care about things like that, regional rivalries and drivable road games. Nobody cares about those things anymore. You haven't cared about those things in years until you realize, well, that is a nice thing to do for our fans. Bring back some old rivalries. Our fans do appreciate that. It's hard to have your cake and eat it too. But that just cracked me up to see that, oh, your fans like when you play regional games? Your fans like when they play somewhere you can drive to and drive home from in a day? They like that, don't they? You think they like that better than playing at Rutgers? You think they might like that better than playing at Oregon? College sports, man. College sports in 2024. What are you going to do? That'll do it for this 580 Sports Talk segment. We'll take a quick break, come back with some thoughts on NFL Week 15, including the Bills' big win, the Lions' big personnel losses, and what the hell is Jonathan Taylor doing? He cost his team the playoffs, in all likelihood. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. 5:35 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero flying the plane solo today. Spencer Dupuis will be back tomorrow. NFL Week 15 just about in the books. 2 more games tonight. Neither are all that spectacular on paper. You got Minnesota against Chicago. Bears look like they were about ready to quit last week. We'll see if they got any more fight in them tonight as the Vikings try to get back into the NFC North title picture with a win. And then you have the Falcons and the Raiders. And you can hear that one right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. No Max Crosby for the Raiders. He's out for the season. I think it's Desmond Ridder at quarterback. Desmond Ridder revenge game. There's your hook. Desmond Ridder revenge game. That's why you should tune in tonight to listen to the Raiders and the Falcons from Westwood One right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. That's all coming up after that game coming up, by the way, after the Chiefs Kingdom show. The Lions and the Bills played a score fest yesterday in Detroit. Bills jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Lions could never catch up. 48-42 ended up being the final. I still can't remember who it was on Sunday NFL Countdown. I mentioned this earlier in the show. So if you've been hanging out with me for all 3 hours, apologies for running this back. But I just want to make this point again. I think it was either Teddy Bruschi or Alex Smith. I want to say it was Bruschi on Sunday NFL Countdown ESPN, who in the same breath said that the matchup between the Bills and the Lions was the matchup of the 2 most complete teams in the NFL. And then, again, in the same breath, said that the big question of the game was, can either of these defenses get a stop? And I feel like if that's a question, then maybe these teams aren't really all that complete. I have lots of questions about the defense for both teams. The Bills have given up 40-plus each the last 2 weeks. And as Matt Verderam pointed out when we had him on the show in the 3 o'clock hour today, the Bills were down 2 safeties and they were down Rasul Douglas yesterday, but those aren't like impact players. Those aren't stars. That's not like, if the Chiefs were missing Chris Jones, right? And they have Matt Milano back. I know he left the game yesterday, but he's been back. So the Bills defense give up 40-plus each the last 2 weeks. And had a good offenses, but I think it's still a gettable defense. It feels very gettable to me. It does feel like the Bills are going to have to win some shootouts in the playoffs. Now, the way Josh Allen is playing, they are more than capable. Man, Josh Allen is going to win the MVP, and he's going to deserve it. And there will be a lot of talk going into the playoffs that this is Josh Allen's league now, that he's overtaken Mahomes because Mahomes is having the worst year of his career. It is Josh Allen's league. It's his time. It's his opportunity. Just like there was a lot of talk last year at the same time that this is Lamar Jackson's league now. He's got 2 MVPs. This is his opportunity. He'll never have a better chance. This is his time. And then the Chiefs crushed those hopes and dreams, and they may very well do it again to Buffalo this year. But I can't get behind Buffalo being the most complete team. They're great. Don't get me wrong. They're playing really well. Offensively, they look awesome. Allen looks as good as he's ever looked. But I would not call that a complete team, not the way that their defense is played. The Lions, meanwhile, how about this defensive lineup for the Lions? A defensive line of Aiden Hutchinson, Alim McNeil, Marcus Davenport, and John Kaminsky. A linebacking group of Alex Anzalone, Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes, and Jalen Reeves-Maben. And a defensive backfield of Carlton Davis, Ennis Rakestraw, Emmanuel Mosley, and Ifeatu Melifonwu. That's a pretty good defensive lineup. There are stars on that group, Pro Bowlers, all pros. Those guys are all out. Those guys are all on IR-ish. I can't swear that they're all on IR. But those are all guys who've been hurt and are not currently active for the Lions. That's an entire starting defense worth of guys. Other than Brian Branch, who's a star on the Lions defense right now? Who's a stud? Who's a playmaker? Who's a difference maker? I don't think they have one. I think all those guys are hurt. They lost McNeil and Davis and running back David Montgomery for the season with injuries yesterday. And it gets to a point where you run into, and I mention this in college football a lot because it really does happen more in college football. You run into a deficit of dudes. You just run out of guys, right? You run out of, like, studs, difference makers. You just don't have enough. You can win a lot of games, like Indiana. Indiana's a great example of this. Indiana went 11-1 this year, and Curt Cignetti won National Coach of the Year. And the one team they played that was worth their salt was Ohio State. And they were at a dude deficit against Ohio State, just like they're going to be at a dude deficit against Notre Dame when they play on Friday night, the first college football playoff game. They're going to be a dude deficit, and they're going to get beat. Because you run out of dudes. You don't have as many dudes as the other team. They didn't have as many dudes as the Bills yesterday. And the dudes that are left for the Lions kept dropping like flies. So it's a bummer because that's a great Lions team. It's a good roster. And if all things were equal and you could turn injuries off, I might say that was the best team in football. I might say that was the most complete team in football. They had a guys on defense. And most of these guys aren't like Aiden Hutchinson not coming back. Carlton Davis isn't coming back. Mosley's not coming back. Alan McNeil tore his ACL yesterday. He's not coming back. I think Malcolm Rodriguez is out for the year. Like, you just run into a point where it's too much. And I think the Lions might be there. And it's a bummer because you hate to see injuries be that impactful. And look, you're a Chiefs fan, you're saying, hey, I got no sympathy. Rashee Rice is out for the year. And Jalen Watson might be out for the year. And Hollywood Brown played one snap of the preseason. And injuries happen. And the Chiefs have been dinged by injury more than a lot of contenders this year. But, man, that is a bummer for the Lions because everything lined up for them this year, and they might not be healthy enough to take advantage of it. The other thing that I want to talk about from NFL Week 15, why do people still keep dropping the ball before they get in the end zone? You know, it occurred to me, I was watching some rugby during the Summer Olympics. Remember all the way back in the summer? It was Olympic year this year, and they had the rugby. I don't know how much rugby you watch on your own time. I watch it on the Olympics. I'm not like firing up like pro rugby, on the regular. But I do know this about rugby. When you score what they call a try, which is essentially the rugby version of a touchdown, you have to get the ball over the line and you have to down the ball in the end zone. I don't know all the rugby terminology. I apologize. You got to down the ball, right, to get a try. Maybe that needs to be what you do to score a touchdown in football. I don't know, because there was a touchdown that the Bengals cost themselves by getting a little too fancy on defense, and the guy kneed the football out of the back of the end zone. And then Jonathan Taylor, great player for the Colts, is about to score a touchdown that I honestly think would have been a dagger early in the third quarter against the Broncos. The Broncos were playing like garbage the first half of that game, and they were down 13-7, and they just turned it over, and Jonathan Taylor was off to the races for a walk-in 41-yard touchdown, and he drops the ball half a yard short, and it goes out of bounds, and it's a touchback, and the Colts never score again, and they lose a game that they had to win. Had they won that game, we talked about it last week, if they had beaten the Broncos, the playoff odds for both the Broncos and the Colts would have been the same, 51%. A coin flip between those two teams. Now, the Broncos playoff odds are like 91, and the Colts playoff odds are a single digit. And I think it's all because Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball. And look, I watched his post-game remarks. He knows he messed up. I don't want to pile on him. Pile on a guy who handled it with the requisite humility and dejection. Like, he's going to have to take his medicine on this. But between that and the worst double pass I've ever seen in the history of football, and Nick Bonito intercepting the pass back to the quarterback and going 50 yards for a defensive touchdown, the Colts should have won that game. The Broncos were terrible for 45 minutes of that game, and they won 31-13. It looked like a blowout at the end because the Colts could not get out of their own way. And the Colts aren't going to the playoffs, and the Broncos are, and that game's going to be the reason why. And that play is going to be the reason why. I don't understand how it keeps happening. I don't understand how Deshaun Jackson doing it once wasn't the end of it. Everybody has seen that highlight. Everybody has seen a player do that. Everybody saw Leon Lett get stripped from behind in that Super Bowl by Don Beebe of the Bills. We all saw it. You have to cross the plane with the football. Rule number one, if you want it to count, Don't drop the ball behind you to look cool. You can drop it when you're 5 yards deep in the damn end zone. Get off my lawn. That's my old man take of the day. Hold on to the ball. Score the touchdown. Down it in the end zone. Make it a try. I don't know. That's how I'd be coaching my players. Absolutely inexcusable from the Colts. Also, there was a Sunday night football game on last night, and I don't want to talk about it, so we're going to take a break. Come back with more 580 Sports Talk. Some final thoughts about the Chiefs' 21-7 win over the Cleveland Browns. Never to give out game balls for the game. We usually do that on the Monday show, on a Victory Monday. About a nod to George Karlaftis, a 2-sack day for Furious George. Effort sacks. That's what George is all about. And he picked up 2. He's up to 7 on the year. Nick Bolton, I thought, played a really strong game, effective in blitzes, and also had an interception. Trent McDuffie, first career interception for Trent. We've been looking for it for the longest time. And when he finally does get it, I mean, you talk about a highlight to remember. The footwork, or the knee work, I guess. You get the knee down along the sideline in the end zone with the ball securely in the possession on a bit of a jump ball. That was a super play by Trent. That one should count for more, frankly. Should count for more interceptions on his career ledger. It was so good. Another really solid all-around game for McDuffie. He continues to play at an all-pro level. And Xavier Worthy had the touchdown. I jokingly mentioned this on the instant reaction on YouTube. What do we got to do to get Xavier Worthy some shoes that like Velcro or that he slips into? because I swear his shoelaces were the only thing keeping him from a 100-yard day yesterday. He was close, this close, to breaking some huge plays out on the perimeter, and a defender would just get a piece of his shoe top, and he would go down. And I think some of it, too, was it was a little slick on the field. Maybe that cost Xavier Worthy just a hair's bit of burst, and could have maybe cost him a big play or two. But you can see the Chiefs. I thought that was the best that they had used Worthy in the game, as far as getting him in motion, using him as a decoy in motion, freezing the defense, making the defense account for him and his speed, and having him run routes that utilize his speed for some easy pitch and catch stuff, and then getting him out on the perimeter with the ball in his hand on some of those motion plays. And you saw what it can be. When you block it up right, what it can be is a touchdown, like the 21-yarder that made it 21-0. So I thought that Worthy played well, and I thought his usage was really good. And I think that that's the path forward to get the best football from Xavier Worthy moving forward. Two other guys I wanted to point to real quick. One not so good, one better. Harrison Butker missed a 29-yard field goal at the end of the first half. And again, I know, weather not great. He still didn't look comfortable kicking the ball, and they're still not using him on kickoffs, still using Justin Reed on kickoffs. So I don't know that he's all the way healthy. I wonder if the Chiefs maybe could have held him out one more week. I don't think Matthew Wright would have missed that 29-yarder. Maybe he would have. But I was trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen Butker miss a kick that bad, ever. And hopefully that's an exception and not a new rule with that knee injury for Harrison, because again, one of the many edges that the Chiefs have had when January has rolled around, in addition to the Hall of Fame coach and the Hall of Fame maybe best quarterback we've ever seen, has been a kicker who doesn't miss in the clutch or really in any other time. And the Chiefs need Harrison Butker to be that, especially with how close games have been for them throughout the year. One other guy I want to mention, because we didn't really mention him, and didn't mention him on Sunday, haven't mentioned him today. Mike Caliendo filled in at left guard with Joe Thuney kicking over to left tackle. And I thought Thuney played really well in the first half, and then like the rest of the offensive line gave up a bunch of pressures in the second half. But I didn't have any problem with how Mike Caliendo played. And if that's what you were saying about your backup interior lineman having to fill in a tough spot against a good defensive front, tip of the cap to Mike Caliendo, because I don't think he was getting many in the discussions of this game. You can forget about an interior lineman sometimes. But I thought Caliendo played fine. And I thought that the Chiefs offensive line did not maybe play great as a whole, particularly in the second half. But to bring it all back to what we were saying at the top, play calling and Mahomes holding the ball too long have a little bit to do with that as well. One last break. We'll come back with a final word on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping things up with a quick final word on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. I am equal parts incensed that Patrick Mahomes ended up in a position where he got injured in the fourth quarter of yesterday's game, and also not really super concerned about Patrick Mahomes' ankle injury because I've seen him play through worse, and I've seen him win a Super Bowl with worse. So not an ideal scenario, but it does seem like the Chiefs have dodged a bullet. I will be very surprised if he doesn't play Saturday, even though right now it seems like Vegas doesn't think he's going to play Saturday. I would expect him to play Saturday because you need to do a lot to keep that guy off the field, especially with the number 1 seed still up in the air for the Chiefs. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk today. Thanks for hanging out with me. Really appreciated your company throughout these last 3 hours. Hope you enjoyed mine as well. We'll do this again tomorrow from 3 until 6. Spencer Dupuis will join me on tomorrow's show. We got the Chiefs Kingdom show coming up with Mitch Holtis, followed by Monday Night Football from Westwood One. Coverage tonight of the Raiders and the Falcons. The Jeff Mitty show will follow all of that on tomorrow's program. Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us. We'll also hear from KU head women's basketball coach Brandon Schneider. Jayhawk women off to a 10-1 start. Brandon Schneider will join me on tomorrow's program. Hope you will too, from 3 until 6. Until then, my name is Dan Lucero. This was 580 Sports Talk. Have a great rest of your night, everyone.